Hello, I'm Dr. Doug Dotterweich. Most people just call me Dr. D. This is Quantitative Methods for Business 2, ECON 2080. And I wanted to kind of give you a little bit of my philosophy of teaching for just a minute before we get started. The number one thing that I want you to hold me to during the course of this online course is that I simplify the material enough that you understand it. And that means that I'm not trying to impress you with big words or hide behind knowledge that you don't have, but I want you to be able to do it by the time we get done. So if you're able to do that, good. If not, let me know. Okay? I wanted to start by talking about some questions that you might have that you might not be willing to ask me. And the first question has to do with why do we need to know anything about statistics anyway? And of course you need it to get your degree probably, but there's probably a better reason than that, and that's what I wanted to begin by talking about a little bit. All of us are involved in the process of what I call decision making. In a variety of areas we make decisions about should I carry my umbrella to work today or not, or school. And that decision becomes more difficult because we have to do that even though uncertainty exists. And uncertainty just means we don't know for sure what's going to happen. Is it going to rain today or not? If I knew the answer to that, it'd be real easy to decide whether I wanted to bring my umbrella or not. But I have to make the decision now before I get all the information that I need in order to make a better decision. Now, statistics helps me in the process of making decisions. It'll be easy for you maybe to get bogged down by the process of doing it and forget what our reason for doing it is. The primary motivation for this course is to help you to make better business decisions, okay, even though uncertainty exists. So how do we do that? Well, we do that by, and I'll give you kind of a long definition here and then I'll explain it a little bit more clearly, I hope. Statistics uses a body of methods and theory it uses a body of methods and theory which it applies to numerical evidence or numbers and again, the reason we're doing all of this stuff is to help us to make decisions in the face of uncertainty. Okay, so let me break that down for you and make it a little more simple. Basically what we're doing is we're using a body of methods or approaches or formulas in order to examine the numbers or the data, the numerical evidence, to make a decision, even though uncertainty exists. Okay, so that's our objective. That's what we'll be trying to do all semester, is to make decisions even though we don't have the quality of information we might always like in order to do that. Okay, so what I might begin with is, and this should all be review hopefully for all of you, but there's two basic sections of statistics. We call them descriptive statistics and inferential statistics. Descriptive statistics, as the name kind of implies, describes usually a sample. Okay, like an average maybe might be an example of a descriptive statistic, or maybe just a frequency. How many times does this particular value occur? But all we're trying to do there is to describe a set of data that we have. Okay? However, that's not primarily what we'll be doing this semester. Primarily what we'll be doing is what we call inferential statistics. And we do inferential statistics, we're going to look at a sample, which is a part of a population, a small subset of a population, and based on what we see in that sample, we're going to draw a conclusion about the population. That's what we mean by inference. Look at a sample, based on what we see in the sample, we're going to draw a conclusion about the population. Now hopefully you can begin to see the advantage of using inferential statistics. I don't have to look at a whole population in order to get a pretty good idea of what it probably looks like. I can simply look at the sample, and as long as it is a certain kind of sample, then I'll be able to say something about that population without even looking at it. So, in many methods of statistics that we use, we have certain assumptions that are required to use them. One of the most important assumptions that we'll almost always use whenever we do inferential statistics is we have to have a random sample. So let me explain what we mean by that. A random sample is taken from the population, a part of the population, but there is an equal probability or chance of selecting any item from that population. Okay? This is very important, and the reason it's important is because if we don't have a random sample, we're not going to be able to say anything about the population. All we're going to be able to do is to describe the sample. So you want to make sure that when you take a sample, it is representative of that population as best you can. For instance, I wouldn't want to just look at people on my street to find out what they thought of a particular type of tennis shoe, and from that try to generalize to what everybody in Johnson City thinks, because the people on my street might feel differently than other people in the city. So it would make more sense for me to take a sample from the whole city rather than just my street, and as long as there's an equal chance of selecting everyone, based on a smaller sample, I would be able to tell you not only what that sample thinks, but also what the population thinks. Remember, that's our objective when we're doing inferential statistics. Okay? We will find out also that statistics can be applied to many different areas of business. I'm not going to answer these questions for you, but I'm going to give you some types of problems for which you will be able to solve by the end of the semester. If you are working in the area of marketing, let's say you're looking at a new product and you're trying to decide how much to invest on this new product development. If you looked at certain characteristics of that product, like the rate of return and the amount of investment needed, you could predict, if I spend this much on my investment, what my return is likely to be. So it'd be helpful to you as a marketing person to know how to do that. If you were in the area of transportation, you might be interested in finding out trying to predict airline traffic data, let's say for next quarter. You could do that based on the last several quarters worth of airline traffic if you used a method called exponential smoothing. And if you're in accounting, let's say you might be looking at a new form for providing auditing reports, and let's say an old form uses primarily a descriptive approach rather than the new form, which uses more of a quantitative approach. You could go to a sample of individuals and ask them, which of these forms do you like? Let's say 6 people out of 10 like the new form better. Would that be enough evidence for you to go with the new form? Like I said, no answers to those questions, only questions right now. I think that statistics is a course in which working problems is the way to learn the material. Okay? You can watch me work problems, and we will do a lot of that, but you also need to work more problems on your own, probably, if it's a difficult subject for you. So I'll give you opportunity to do that online. You also will have other problems assigned to work on your own. And you do as much as you need to make sure that you know how to do the problems. Let me give you one final thing in the way of introduction here. It's what I call the 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule has to do with 20% of the effort resulting in 80% of the payoff. I can tell you what the hard parts of this class are going to be, and if you're aware of what they are, hopefully you can focus on them as we go through the course. Several things that are very important, but also the most difficult part. Number one, how do I decide what formula to use? You'll have a formula sheet that you can use for your exams. You'll have tables, but if you don't know which formula to use, it's not going to help you very much. So focus on what are the characteristics, what are the assumptions that we need to do this kind of test. I'll help you through that process as we work problems, but keep that in mind. I was pretty good at working problems as long as I knew what section of the chapter I was in. If I didn't know, I had no idea what was going on. So hopefully you won't be in that boat, but focus on that one issue. How do I know when to use this formula? Second question is, how do I set up my null and alternative hypotheses? Those are two other aspects of problem solving that are troublesome for many people. It's easy to get those reversed, and that's a serious problem in statistics, we will find out. So we'll give you a lot of practice, a lot of help in setting up the null and alternative hypothesis so that hopefully you will not have too much difficulty with that. And finally, we don't want to lose sight of where we started out today. Our objective is to help us to make business decisions. If all we can do is plug numbers into a formula and come up with an answer, but we don't know what it means, we really haven't accomplished our objective. So you should be able to interpret the meaning of your results for policy. That's the third important thing. If you can do those three things, you should be in good shape in this course. And I will emphasize those three things as we continue to go through the course. All right, we will begin next time with Chapter 8.